Hi, I'm Celeste.
And I'm Danielle, and we're the founders of the Somatica Institute of Sex and Relationship Coaching, where we trained coaches and offer certification towards becoming a sex and relationship coach. The coaches we train experience so much joy and satisfaction in the coaching practice, especially because the work is mutually vulnerable and connected. And as well as, you really get to love this career because you wake up every morning and you want to go to work and do it. Somatica is also offering the Somatica training for personal growth for people who want to work on their own relationship. And whether you take it for personal growth or professional development, your life will never be the same.
So today we're going to be talking about empowerment around intimacy, emotions, and sexuality for people socialized as men.
Yeah, and in a world where men already hold all the power over other people, what does the term male empowerment really mean? And what we mean by that, and there's a difference between to have the power that was given to men by society, which they may deal with very poorly, unfortunately, and male empowerment, which is much, much
Yeah,
different.
so I think when I think of male empowerment, it's not really power over, it's like a power with. It's really about a deep sense of self-awareness, confidence, integrity, and actually the ability to feel powerful and uplift others into a place of power as well. So for us, we really believe to empower people socialized as men, we want to start it to see the ways that our society actually disempowers boys and men, at the same time putting them in charge of the lives of so many others. So it's this very tough combination. And we feel like it's a recipe for disaster. And there's a much better way to bring up boys and to help them be men who are very empowered, connected, comfortable with themselves.
Oh, yeah. And part of the harmful messages that people socialized as men get is that emotions are a sign of weakness. And we see it throughout cultures. We see it very early on in the playground. If a boy falls on the back in the playground, their parent's going to run to them and say, just straighten up. It doesn't matter. Just shake it off and keep going. And if a girl falls in the playground, she's going to get this like, oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. Let mommy hug you and take care of you. So this right from the start, or even before that, just the assigning of gender immediately makes caretakers treat boys differently than girls. So this message creates repression of emotions, and that can lead to depression, unresolved rage, and a lack of ability to really express emotions intimately in relationship, both with family, partners, friends, and children.
Yeah, I think another really harmful message is this kind of idea, and it's part of the fairy tale, I think, that men are supposed to be kind of the hero, the provider, the knight in shining armor. And what I see happen so often with men coming into our office, and especially if I see them with their female partners, there's this feeling of, I'm supposed to be the provider of stability, I'm supposed to be the emotional caretaker, and I'm supposed to make sure that my female partner is happy. It's kind of a different situation if it's gay men. I think often in that instance, there's nobody's supposed to say that they're having emotional issue at all because there's this overall repression. But in heterosexual relationships, you see a lot of times the woman comes in, she's complaining about something, the man feels like he's supposed to fix it, calm her down, make her feel better. And once that's done, he's okay, happy wife, happy life. And that's not a reality. What really gets missed in that is the feeling that men can have their emotional responses to things as well, that they can get hurt, that they have feelings too, and that often they don't get expressed in the relationship or held or understood. And that creates, long-term instability, because at a certain point, it's, if I'm not being held and I'm being told I do something wrong all the time and it's my job to fix it, but I can't actually fix people's feelings. So like, what am I supposed to do? I think that's often the recipe for kind of a midlife crisis of why am I going to stay here if I'm not also seen and felt and heard?
And then another very damaging message is that as a men you should want sex and be able to get it no matter what. It is super damaging, and the messages are insane. I just watched a movie, and this was this like sweet guy, and he just want to hang out with this beautiful woman, and his friends tell him like, oh, if she's not giving you sex, don't let her treat you like that. I was like, what? What about emotions? What about connection? What about if they're having a good time? What if she doesn't want to have sex with you, but wanting to be her friend? That's like a no-no. And it's humiliating for men if they feel like they don't get sex. And it creates this experience of the search for sex in as a way to define their masculinity. And it created a lot of distortion and challenge for them to be authentic and real in what they really want in a relationship. Instead, they kind of jump in, oh, I'm just going to go for sex. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything.
I know. I was talking to one of our graduates today, and he was saying how he went on this date with this gorgeous Brazilian woman. She was like so hot and sexy and ready, and she wanted to have sex with him. I think she said something like, just stick it in or something. And he's, I'm not ready to have sex. I need to get some touch and intimacy first. And she literally said to him, are you a man? Like immediately she was shaming his masculinity because he needed to go slower and be more connected in order to be ready for sex. And I mean, I remember when I was a younger woman, and before I had gone through all this learning and change, like if a man didn't want to have sex with me, I was like, what's wrong with him? But more recently I had an experience where I had said, okay, I'm ready for sex, and he says to me, I'm not ready yet, is that okay? And I was like, of course it's okay. I want you to keep your boundaries. Like you can decide when you want to have sex, because just because I was ready doesn't mean he was. But the assumption automatically is that men are just ready for sex and want to have it with anyone all the time. And it's so much pressure. I see also a lot of men coming in and saying, oh, I have erectile dysfunction. And so are you attracted to the person that you're wanting to have sex with? She's attractive. And I'm like, yes, but are you attracted to her? It's like, I don't know, And so the body is saying a message that the head is kind of saying, oh, I'm not supposed to ever say no.
Yeah, so going through the training definitely helps men learn this distinction between they develop themselves emotionally. We'll get there later. I just have to say it now about like really finding their own boundaries beyond just like the urge, the immediate need to that follows the message that they got socialized as men is just, oh yeah, I just gonna to have sex. Instead, they start to look inside us and what do I want really in this moment? And many times it's actually not at all about sex.
So I feel like another thing that we really work with, because of the repression that men have around emotions, but one of the things we really work with our male clients on is emotional intelligence. And we break down kind of step by step what that means and why emotional intelligence is so empowering to people who've been socialized as men and who have been sometimes violently repressed around their emotions, certainly verbal insults, sometimes physical violence. If a boy, for example, shows any kind of what is considered to be femininity.
If we look at, what are what are the things that we really help people socialize as men develop, we teach them how to attune energetically to the people around them, their partners, but other people as well, their kids, their friends, how to really attune energetically and really start to read body language and cues and see what the other person wants to, how the other person want to connect.
Yeah, I think another thing that if you haven't been given a lot of empathy and support, if the response to your emotions was like, come on, get up, shake it off, then it can be really hard to give empathy to someone else and to not just try to fix the problem, right? But to actually say, okay, what is this person sharing with me in terms of their feelings? What are they sharing with me in terms of their needs and their boundaries? What are they sharing with me that I can like empathize with and understand and hold and not feel like I have to fix everything? So that's a big piece. But then the other side of that, the flip side, which is also just as important, is for people socialized men to learn how to share vulnerably. I think so often vulnerability is considered to be a weakness as opposed to a strength. And so for men to be able to say, hey, these are my boundaries, or these are my fears, or this is what I'm working on in my life, or to feel sad, or to feel hurt, or to feel angry, and to be able to share those feelings or needs or boundaries with their partner, their friends, their family members when there's misunderstandings or challenges, to not just be the one who's listening and caretaking, but to be the one who's also sharing and receiving care.
On a sexual level, we definitely also help people socialize as men kind of like engage in a mutually arousing experience based on what each of them really wants to feel during sex, which is a concept that Celeste and myself really developing around, like, what is the thing that makes people want to have sex, and what is the thing that, like, why bother? Why bother having sex? So if you've been hanging out with us, you're going to hear the why bother pretty often, pretty frequently. What is the real reason to have sex? If you're not supposed to just have sex for the sake of just because I'm supposed to, then you start to inquire, what is arousing for me? What do I want to feel? Do I want to feel masterful? Do I want to feel powerful? Do I want to feel submissive? Do I want to feel like I don't have to do anything and someone can take care of me? So there are we have an arsenal of feelings that you can try and check it out in the coming together, as well as in one of our blogs that I can post here. But there's wonderful things that we teach people socialize as men to kind of start to go for it from an emotional perspective and not just from the acts of sex, because we see when we explore with men many times, what is it that they want to turn them on? They immediately go to the acts. I want a threesome. I want I want anal, but they don't go to, like, why is that so powerful for them and why is it so impactful? And then marketing is much harder. It's much harder to explain it to your partner if you just want an act as opposed to you want something that is more fulfilling emotionally.
I think also one of the ways that men get repressed around emotions is like the feeling of being able to share sentiments, being able to share appreciations, or being able to share romantic feelings. I think often there's a feeling of, firstly, I shouldn't need appreciations because I'm just supposed to do it. And so it's kind of, you know, not great to give appreciations because it's almost like being condescending or something. I've definitely worked with men who have that feeling. And then kind of, sharing things around love is very vulnerable, and tenderness, and that also gets repressed because it feels like cheesy or awkward or not masculine. I know I'm like very verbal when I give affection to partners, and I'm always like, oh, you're so beautiful, I love looking at you, I love touching you. Those are kind of the things that I just naturally say. And I had a very verbally affectionate family growing up, but I noticed that men that I'm with often are like hesitant to share those things, and they have to firstly probably get used to receiving them, because I think a lot of times, especially in heterosexual relationships, women might not verbalize how beautiful their male partners are to them or how much they love touching or being with them, and want that verbalization to come their way. I know I like it to come my way, but I also give it. But I think helping them feel like it's okay for them to say, those feelings, and to show those feelings and to share those feelings vulnerably. And maybe even, I know with a lot of our clients, we need to actually teach them what kinds of things that they would say. What are romantic things to say, or what are passionate things to say, or how can you play with dominance and submission in an erotic situation? Like love and appreciation and any kind of verbalization can be very vulnerable because it brings in that emotional energy that's intense, and that people socialize as men have been really repressed around.
Yeah.
We also want to have any questions. We're going to talk about sexual empowerment for men as well, but we also want to hear any questions you have as we go along. Great.
Yeah. So a very powerful thing that we help men overcome is shame around their sexuality, because with the message that you didn't want to have sex all the time, there's also a lot of shame because there's not a lot of embracing of the rainbow of sexual experience. And we help men and we get a lot of clients that they're saying, oh, I feel I have sex addiction and I feel like super like I'm going to my secret place to have my sexual experiences with porn. And they talk a lot about it. We have a whole part that we talk about, and we might even do like a separate webinar on addiction and sex addiction and addiction to porn. But what I really just want to touch here is this whole experience of really taking shame out of sexuality, deshamifying ruthlessly, and helping people embrace their core desires. We don't choose our core desires, and they develop as a way for us to feel, to kind of overcome hurdles and really work through stuff that emotional material for us. And many times when people don't feel like they can go and talk about what they want and desire, they go into hiding and they start doing it more and more in kind of like in a hiding way. And that creates more shame and less embracing of your sexuality. So a lot of the experience of coming to Somatica, working with a Somatica coach, is really going and deshamifying the desires that people have and learning to separate between like I fantasize about it as opposed I'm actually going to do that.
Yeah, so before I go on to the next piece around sexual empowerment for men, I really love this question, Giselle. If you're in a relationship, how could I as a woman hold space for men and support them sharing their feelings without going into a very mothering energy and still keeping that polarity alive? So I think some people really like the energy of polarity as an erotic tension, right? Some people want polarity, some people don't want polarity. But if polarity is important for you erotically, I think it's important to think of it as an erotic experience and to have that played out more in your sexual life. But in your day-to-day life, I think mutual emotional vulnerability is really important. So you're right. It's not a place where you go into a mothering energy necessarily, but I would say a loving energy, an open energy, and an empathetic energy. So you're listening and you're not like caretaking or fixing. You're really just like allowing the other person to have their feelings. If you, and a lot of times when I first try to invite my male partners into speaking their feelings, I might actually guess what it is that they're feeling in a situation. When I've done something that I can tell doesn't feel good to them, I might say, it seems like maybe that made you feel unimportant, or maybe you're kind of feeling frustrated or angry right now. I might even check in if they're not saying any feelings. I might kind of check in about those feelings, but also just, I think if you bring too much mothering energy or anything that looks like pity, that might shut them down to their vulnerability. So it's more just like listening, being loving, being open, and saying, hey, I know you really do a great job of listening to my feelings. And I'm wondering if there's something that you're feeling about all of this, because I feel like I've talked about my feelings a lot and I'm not sure what's going on for you. So I would love to hear that. So in terms of getting back to sexual empowerment for men, I think another really important thing is a lot of times men come to us and they're like, I'm worried about being creepy, and sometimes there are men who come into my office and they have a vibe that's like very much based on what I think of as a scarcity model. Like, I need to try to get sex, and so I'm never going to be able to get sex, so I need to hurry up and get past somebody's boundaries as fast as I can, or make something happen, or seduce. And there's all of this pressure, and that causes like a misattunement, and often like almost like an obliviousness to what the other person wants and needs, because you're feeling scarce and afraid that something sexual is not going to happen. So I think when you switch that over, a big piece of sexual empowerment for people socialized as men is almost like trying to think of, what do I really want from my partner? I want something much more like enthusiastic consent. I don't want this person to just put out, we have this horrible like phrasing, put out, as if like they're giving something that they don't really want to give. We're trying to get them to give it. And instead for them to feel like, okay, it's going to be much more fulfilling if I'm teaming up with my partner and seeing what do they really want and what will help them feel enthusiastically interested and consenting and engaged and excited. And when a person feels like you're teaming up with their desire, definitely relaxes them. I don't want you to cross your boundaries. I want you to really feel good here. I want you to tell me what you want and what you don't want. And there's this like relief, I think, especially for people socialized as women who often feel like they have to be like, stopping. But I've actually talked to a lot of gay men who've said that they've been in spaces where they felt like, oh, they had to be okay with their genitals just being grabbed out of the blue or something like that, as opposed to feeling like, hey, I can, have bodily integrity here, and the people in my space are going to respect that. So I think that comes from, like, we're supposed to get sex all the time, sex is scarce, and then transitioning that to more like, how do we help people know what they want and get, and be in partnership around enthusiastic consent. So I feel like that's very empowering and takes away the creepy vibe and brings in a much more confident, centered, connected vibe.
I love this question. When men are socialized to be fixers, planners, providers, etc., intimate expression may seem like work because everything else feels like work. So how to transition this vulnerability and intimacy from an obligation to a joyful practice of connection? I think a good way to do it is, first, it does seem like many other things might seem like work. Like, hey, maybe you start of it, you start with it with a little bit of more kind of like practice and commit to trying it out, but also things don't work out if you just do them from a place of work and obligation, but really finding what is pleasurable for you around that. And it might not be the process itself, because it might feel excruciating at the beginning. It might feel like, oh my God, I'm going to be vulnerable. It feels so risky. I don't know what the other person, how they're going to respond to me, but really finding what is pleasurable for you in that, and what is exciting and rewarding for you around that. And it might be feeling more into the connection and feeling how there's much more space in the connection and much more intimacy that happens, and the rewards of it, and that then it will become much more joyful.
And I love this question. How do we support folks socialize as men in moving from the NRE chase, the new relationship energy chase, and deepening ability to enjoy desire in long-term relationships, especially if the chase feels like an identity? So I think I would call the chase maybe that feeling of I'm going to get something, more of a core desire. Like, it can be very exciting. So the first thing that I do is I acknowledge how exciting it can be. Instead of shaming it or saying, oh, you just want this all the time, I actually always give adults a choice. I say, you might want to just be getting new relationship energy all the time. And there might be ways, if you want to have longer connection, to experience that same kind of energy that you're looking for. Like, you can play with the chase in a long-term relationship, right? If that is a real turn on for you, then you might need to tell your partner that, and have your partner be a little bit more, coy or hard to get, or spend a lot of time out of the house and make you have to chase them again. So I think the real way to do it is to honor that there can be a turn on connected to that, and see, can that be translated into long-term connection?
So let's just kind of take a few more, let's talk for a little bit more about sexual empowerment for men. So another thing that we talk about is how we help men in the training to become amazing lovers and really teach them skills. We also teach everyone in the training all those skills, because I think these are amazing skills to have, to expand on your menu and know what you want and what turns you on, and ask for it. So we give a very wide menu. And for many people socialized as men, having this menu and feeling masterful and skillful is very powerful. It helps them feel their energy, and it helps them feel like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And because sex feels like such a big thing to people, so it feels a big thing for me too, but because of the socialization, it's very important for many people socialize as men, and feeling masterful is really important for them, and we give them the arsenal of tools to feel that way.
Yeah, I think so many men who come into our office, that might be one of the main reasons that they seek us out, is to say, I want to learn how to be the best lover I can be. And then often in the midst of that, at some point, as part of their empowerment, I also want to say, great, it's wonderful to learn how to be a wonderful lover to other people. And also, what do you want? And how do you communicate those things to a partner so that you can get, because I think a lot of times, like, we think of men as very simple sexually, like they all, it's just, they just want to have intercourse or get a blowjob or something like that. And actually, yes, they might be able to get off like that, but there's actually much more interesting and complex things once you get into anybody's psyche around desire and even like technique and the kind of touch, you know, like I've heard so many men say to me, yeah, like I've had a lot of bad blowjobs in my life, you know, but I don't know that they generally speak up for themselves and say, you know, I'd like that to be like softer or slower, or can you tease me, or to actually be able to share with a partner in addition to finding out what their partner wants, to actually share with a partner what they want or what's going to get them psychologically aroused or what's going to get them most physiologically aroused. So that is, I think, another big part of male sexual empowerment as well.
Yeah, so we have great questions here. Maybe I do want to pause for a second and talk about the training, and then we're going to go and answer all those amazing questions. I really want to celebrate that we are really close to actually closing the training in March. That starts in March. So if you really want to get in, you probably don't want to wait. We have about 15 spots left. So if you sign up today, you get today is the last day for early bird, so you get the $200 off for early bird. If you sign up tonight by midnight tonight, you also get another $200 off for participating in this webinar. And then if you are able to pay in full, there's another $500 off. So I'm going to put the link here to find your way and what kind of package you want to take. You can sign up the whole way to be a sign up for certification, and there's additional discount for this package. And then, or you can sign up just for the upcoming training. We have payment plans, 10 payments available to help you really work with that.
Yes, well, I love what you say here. It's funny, the stereotype is that men privilege their own desire, but in my own experience, I feel ashamed of having any particular needs at all and tend to be much more focused on the woman's pleasure than my own. Centering myself feels edgy and shy. And I would say that's probably true of most men who come into my office. That doesn't mean that's most men in the world, but the feeling of I'm just supposed to be pleasing to the other person, and that's my job, as opposed to I'm also supposed to, or I also can ask for pleasure for myself. And I think it is edgy for a lot of men. And, you know, you don't want to feel selfish. You don't want to kind of get labeled as somebody who's not a generous lover. And so I think to remember that in all of the giving, your partner actually might really be also turned on by the idea that they might be able to really turn you on. I know it's very exciting for me when I can give a lover exactly what they want as well, and especially if I'm feeling very appreciative of how much they are trying to give me what I want. So bringing yourself into the equation can be really valuable and fulfilling for both you and your partner.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see more of you in our future webinars and in trainings and workshops. And if you enjoyed what you saw here, please follow us on Facebook and like us on Facebook, and also subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Celeste and Danielle. We can't wait to see more of you.
Bye.